So this is going to be the iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the Pixel 6 Pro. And the only reason I'm doing this video is just to help maybe some people who are considering upgrading from the Pixel 6 Pro to a new phone this year. So whether that be the new Pixel 7 Pro or maybe considering an iPhone this time around. So in this case, the newest iPhone, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's just go ahead and talk about them. So starting off the design, both of them have a very different design when it comes to how they look and how they feel. So how they look is definitely going to be up to your own decision, depending on which one you think looks sexier or nicer, whatever terms you want to use. Both of them definitely look like premium and elegant devices, but out of both of them, I would definitely say the iPhone 14 Pro Max feels the most premium and it feels a lot heavier. It's got a squared off finish, so it's got a square design, matte back with a glossy sides, and then the Pixel 6 Pro is glossy all around and it's rounded and like comfortable and soft in a way and lighter. So it feels a little bit more curved in the hand. It feels more comfortable in my opinion, but it is a glossy finish all around, like I said, so it is a little bit more slippery in my opinion. iPhone 14 Pro Max is also still pretty slippery, so at the end of the day, I still recommend using a case or at minimum a skin on either of them. So when it comes to like actual feeling, I would definitely prefer the Pixel 6 Pro just because I like it a little bit lighter and also like that it's curved, so it's a little bit more comfortable in the hand. But both of them are pretty big phones overall. Both of them have a 6.7-inch display on the front. Both of them are about 1440p, 120 Hz capable, and pretty overall good quality displays. Now the Pixel 6 Pro does have a more box-to-box looking display, and it also is a curved display versus the flat display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I only prefer a flat display because it is easier to apply a tempered glass screen protector versus on a curved one, usually you have to apply like a flex one, or if you get a tempered glass one, they're usually much more expensive. But I definitely like a curved display as well. It's definitely nice when you're using the gestures. It's very soft and comfortable feeling, and also it looks pretty elegant in my opinion, but it can lead to some accidental touches and some people may not like it. So using a case will fix that issue. But as far as their image quality and how they look, both of them look very nice, sharp, and colorful. If anything, I think the Pixel 6 Pro is a little bit more vibrant when you set it to either adaptive or a more colorful display in the settings. The iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely tends to lean towards the more natural side. So I prefer the more colorful display of the Pixel 6 Pro, but the iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely looks really good as well when you're watching videos or even when you're browsing around. Both of them have the 120 Hz. So that means that both of them are super smooth when you're scrolling around, and plus their software is very nice when it comes to the animations. It's kind of hard to choose which one I think is more smoother when it comes to the animations. I think both of them are really good. Out of all phones I've used, the Pixel 6 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, or just any, or even iPhone 13 Pro, are probably one of the two smoothest phones I've ever used. But as far as the intrusions on the displays, so on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you do have a pill cutout that acts as a dynamic island. I find that pretty annoying compared to the Pixel 6 Pro's simple symmetrical cutout. At least both of them are symmetrical, but the Pixel 6 Pro's is a lot smaller, and the bezels are about the same on both until you get down to the bottom chin. That's where the Pixel 6 Pro will have a slightly thicker chin versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max that's pretty uniform and even throughout the whole display that has the exact same bezel size, which I gotta appreciate and truly admire. And both of them have the always on display as well, with the iPhone 14 Pro Max having literally an always on display, meaning it literally looks like it's always on, versus the Pixel 6 Pro does use just the time and info always on display. It literally doesn't even call it always on display. It just says on your lock screen, show time and info always. So it doesn't even call it always on display, but both of them have that option, and I prefer the Pixel 6 Pro's implementation of the always on display. But the reason it's got a pill cutout and dynamic island is because it's got the Face ID sensors in there versus the Pixel 6 Pro that has a fingerprint sensor underneath the display. So you have to choose between either facial recognition or fingerprint unlock. And honestly, between both of them, the facial recognition is going to be a lot better. Face ID is very fast and reliable. I honestly have like little to zero issues with it, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro, it can be a little hit or miss sometimes. It is pretty good for the most part. Sometimes I'll get a little bit of annoyance where I will have to press down a little longer or it won't recognize me, but about 8 out of 10 times it'll always recognize me. And as far as buttons and ports, on the bottom of both devices you'll find the charging ports. On the Pixel 6 Pro you have the universal USB-C, which I gotta appreciate and love. And on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you have Lightning, which sucks. I don't know why they're still using Lightning, but they have Lightning. And as far as those speakers, both of them are dual firing speakers, and both of them sound pretty good for the most part. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely sounds a lot more balanced and better overall, just because if you cover up one, either the bottom or the top earpiece, it still sounds about the same. Versus the Pixel 6 Pro, the bottom speaker is definitely the louder speaker, so if you cover up the bottom one, you'll definitely notice that the top earpiece is not as loud as the bottom. So, but overall, both of them sound pretty good. The volume rocker and the power button are both on the same side on the Pixel 6 Pro versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max that has it on the other side. My only complaints when it comes to the power button and volume rocker is that, one, on the Pixel 6 Pro, for some reason for me, it feels a little bit clunkier with the button, so it doesn't feel as clicky compared to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And not to mention that the power button's a lot bigger on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I like. And on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you also have a mute switcher, which I find to be very convenient. Usually I keep my phones on mute all the time because I do use smartwatches, so I usually rely on that to get my notifications and calls. But when I ever need to have my phone on ring, I just usually have to switch it on, versus on the Pixel 6 Pro, I have to go into the settings to turn it on. And both devices are fully IP68 water and dust resistant rated, so if you get splashed by water, both of them will be just fine. So when it comes to the performance and everyday usage, the Pixel 6 Pro is going to have a Google Tensor chip with 12 gigabytes of RAM, versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max is going to have a A16 Bionic chip with 6 gigabytes of RAM. What that means is basically on both of them, you should be fine for your everyday usage. Whatever you do, your basics tasks should be great. I did find at first when I got the Pixel 6 Pro that the software and the hardware probably still needed to work out some kinks, so there was a little bit of lag, a little bit of performance issues where I saw the refresh rate would drop and stuff like that. But over time, the performance has gotten so much better. I already mentioned how the animations are super smooth, so scrolling around, doing my everyday thing, I have had like no issue now. So every day is perfectly fine when I use this phone for my everyday usage for my Pixel 6 Pro. I can say the same thing with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Right now, there's still a little couple bugs every now and then I run into with the software. Still probably needs a couple software updates to get the kinks fixed out and whatnot, similar to how the Pixel 6 Pro was, but I think the Pixel 6 Pro probably had a rougher time when it first came out compared to how the iPhone 14 Pro Max is doing right now. It's still doing perfectly fine. Everything is great. Everything is running really fast and smooth. Opening apps is perfectly fine. And when you want to do a little bit more, both of them can definitely handle it. But unfortunately, the Pixel 6 Pro does tend to warm up a little bit faster. Both of them will get hot after some time. And I wouldn't say hot to the point where it like hurts your hands, but definitely warm enough where you can definitely feel it. But the Pixel 6 Pro, like I said, definitely tends to warm up after some time quicker versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And the performance does feel a little bit more smoother when using it on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Like, for example, when I was playing Apex Legends on the exact same settings, I found that the iPhone 14 Pro Max just felt overall smoother in performance when playing around. So either way, both of them can definitely do a lot of stuff. It can definitely handle everything you throw at them. But I would say the iPhone 14 Pro Max is probably overall better in performance. As far as the software, it's going to come down to straight up Android 13 versus iOS 16. It's definitely going to come down to your personal preference and what you're used to and prefer. But if you're thinking about maybe making a switch, I guess I can try and help you decide that. So with the Pixel 6 Pro's Android 13, it's stock Android for the most part. So you're going to get very basic customization, but a decent amount still. So as far as Material You, this is their biggest thing when it comes to Android 12 and Android 13, that basically your whole aesthetic of your UI will match the colors of your wallpaper to make the whole phone kind of match together, which is overall pretty nice in my opinion. I definitely think it looks pretty clean. They've recently added a couple of new tweaks and fixes that makes the whole color stuff match even better. So overall, I think Android 13 does look pretty clean, and it does use like a thicker, more padding looking look to it. So volume rocker, the quick settings, all that stuff is gonna have like a thick padding look to it, which I personally am not a huge fan of, but it does look pretty clean overall because that way they can really put in the fact that the colors will be different. The other customizations such as the home screen stuff, you can for the most part freely move apps and widgets anywhere you please, but the only place you can't place apps and widgets is near the at a glance widget, which I still find a little bit annoying, but I've gotten used to it at this point that I don't care anymore. But it's something that you are limited to. You also have the Google Discover page ready to go, so you can just browse articles that are linked to your Google account. You also have the app drawer, which is your usual app drawer. It just keeps all your apps there. You can't really make folders or customize it in any way and organize it better. So it's just all your apps that are there. You also have a bunch of AI features when it comes to the Google Pixel 6 with the Google Tensor chip, so such as live translate, so it can translate stuff on your phone or help you communicate with other people. It also has AI for spam calls, so it can detect when it's a spam caller and let you know, or even answer the phone for you if it's a spam call or if it's a number you've never heard from. Either way, you have a bunch of AI features and intelligent stuff when it comes to the Google Tensor chip with Google. On the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's definitely going to come down more to like ecosystem personalization, even though actually on a Google Tensor chip, or on the Pixel I should say, they're building their ecosystem pretty well. So if you have like earbuds that are Google made or earbuds that have like a good connection with Google, as soon as you turn them on, it'll automatically tell you that there's an available device that you can connect to it very easily. And plus, it's pretty simple to connect to other Google stuff such as your Google Home stuff. The home integration is very nice, so if you have a lot of Google Home stuff, it's definitely going to work nicer on the Pixel 6 Pro. And in fact, you also have RCS messaging with other Android devices, so whether it be a Pixel or Samsung devices, they're all linking together now that they use Google Messages, so you'll have RCS kind of similar to the iPhone experience with iMessage, where you can see read and receipt stuff and also I think send pictures on a little bit higher quality, but it definitely won't beat out what iPhone has with that, with the whole ecosystem of iMessage and FaceTime. iMessage is like the golden standard for when it comes to messaging apps here in the US. With FaceTime, it's also easy to connect with people like that. And it's also pretty simple to connect with your other iOS and Apple devices. So again, this is similar to how Google has their own ecosystem in a way. This is a little bit more tied down, a little bit more limited though, because you can still connect with Google stuff on the iPhone 14 Pro Max or on iOS, I should say. But if you want to connect to other Apple devices, you have to have an iPhone or have to have some kind of Apple product to connect with them. Because otherwise, if you have a Google device, you can't connect to those Apple devices. I mean, I think you can, but you're more limited on what features you have available. So besides the ecosystem stuff, the other things that the iPhone 14 Pro Max has with iOS 16 is one going to be the lock screen customization that you have available. So I think it's a little bit more customizable than it is on the Pixel 6 Pro, which is pretty nice. But I also like that you can set up focus modes for each wallpaper. So just select which focus mode you want with which wallpaper, switch to that wallpaper, and boom, you're set on that focus mode, which I like using it for sleep mode. But you're much more limited on the iOS 16 customization for the home screen. You can't move apps anywhere. You're stuck to having them forced up to the top. So the only way to force them down is by placing widgets on top of them to force those apps to come down. Notification summary is also pretty cool. I like this so that all my notifications that I don't want me spamming throughout the whole day, I just set them up for this summary, and at a certain time, it just spams me with that one summary and I can view them all at once instead of constantly receiving notifications all the time. And actually, I like using back tap on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but the Pixel already has this as well. So you can just tap on the back and bring down the notification panel. On the iPhone 14 Pro Max, since the control center and the notification center are two separate things, you can have two options, one for triple tap or double tap to bring down either or. And since it has dynamic island, the iPhone 14 Pro Max has that dynamic island software feature. So I don't consider this something that's a win over the Pixel 6 Pro. It's cool because they have that pill cutout and they at least added some software stuff, but I wouldn't see it as a reason to want to get the iPhone 14 Pro Max in my opinion. It's just a cool feature in my opinion. I don't want to call it gimmicky yet, but I'm leaning towards that side for me personally. And then the iPhone 14 Pro Max this year brought in crash detection, but the Pixel 6 Pro also has this feature as well. But what it doesn't have is that whole satellite communication stuff. So if you get lost and stuff like that, this can use the satellite communication to connect with someone even if you don't have service. But overall, both devices give you a handful of features and are very different when it comes to their look and customization. There's some similar features that I mentioned, and there's some features I probably didn't talk about and completely missed. But those are the things that I noticed the most and use the most throughout my day-to-days when I'm using these phones. So definitely decide which one you think you prefer. It's going to really come down to the iMessage stuff. I feel like if you're used to that and rely on that, then you probably won't be able to make the switch. But if iMessage isn't a big deal to you, then honestly, I think it really will come down to the small details to decide which software you prefer. But both of them will be giving you a decent amount of support. The iPhone 14 Pro Max will definitely give you a little bit more of lifetime when it comes to software. I think the Pixel 6 Pro will only give you 3 years of OS updates and about 4 to 5 years of security updates. So right now it's already a year old. So I think it's down to 2 years of major OS updates and then still about 3 to 4 more years of security updates, versus iPhone 14 Pro Max will give you a guaranteed like 5 to 6 years of OS updates. So if you're planning on keeping your phone for a longer time, you can still keep the Pixel 6 Pro now because you'll still have a decent amount of lifetime with it, but you could make the jump and get an even further more time of software updates. But I personally still think that both of them will still give you a decent amount of support even after the security updates and stuff like that are done. Now, when it comes down to the camera, both of them are actually really good, to the point where when I was looking at the different photos and videos I took, it was so hard to choose which one I thought looked better. Sometimes I was like, oh, the Pixel 6 Pro definitely is better. Then I was like, wait, the iPhone looks a little bit better now in this picture. So it was back and forth when I was looking through the different shots I took. It was definitely hard to choose a true winner. But what I was able to come to a conclusion was that the Pixel 6 Pro overall took a more vibrant shot most of the times, and then the iPhone 14 Pro Max took a more natural shot most of the times. But sometimes it would be flip-flop. Sometimes the Pixel 6 Pro would look more natural over the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So it really came down and gets down to the situation and color and scene and stuff like that. But both of them, in my opinion, took overall really good photos and videos. So where I did notice some differences is, one, on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the ultra wide is better when it comes to getting close to a subject, and it's also wider at 0.5x. So you're going to get a better shot with the ultra wide, in my opinion, and get closer up to subjects, getting a more macro shot like experience. The mains, though, I was very hard to choose which one was better. I found that both of them took really good shots overall. Sharpness was good. Color was a little bit different on both of them. Like I said, a little bit overall more vibrant on the Pixel 6 Pro, but sometimes vice versa. So it's definitely up to you to decide which one you prefer. Videos, I think the Pixel 6 Pro did a really good job battling it out against the iPhone 14 Pro Max here. I want to say that the iPhone 4 Max did feel a little bit and look a little bit more cinematic in my point of view, and also the ultra wide also looked a little bit better again because you can get closer to subjects and stuff like that. And mains look pretty similar. And in the telephotos, when you're using video, I would give the edge to the Pixel 6 Pro because you can get further into zooms. You can get to a max of 20x versus just 9x on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But sometimes the focus would be a little bit better on the iPhone in the telephoto, because I noticed this one time when I was taking a video of a plane, it was focusing a lot better on the iPhone 14 Pro Max than it was on the Pixel 6 Pro. So sometimes, like I said, it was hard to choose, so it was hard to pick which one looked better. Sometimes it looked exactly the same, sometimes it looked a little bit different, and it really just came down to the small details and personal preferences. In low light situations, I found that the iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely beat it out a little bit more when it came down to like video and stuff like that. The iPhone 14 Max looked a little bit brighter and just a hair sharper. But when it came down to photos in low light situations, both of them was really good in my opinion. I was really impressed with both of them in low light. It's hard to pick again which one looked better. It would definitely come down to the small details and stuff like that. On the front though, in low light, it was pretty bad on both of them, to say the least. I don't think both of them did any better than each other on the front. But when it came to the good lighting conditions on the front, the iPhone 14 Pro Max definitely looked a little bit better. I would say the Pixel 6 Pro sometimes just looked darker for some reason, but both of them still end up looking pretty good. And on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, if you get a little bit closer to a subject, it should be able to focus it a little bit better and get a better quality looking shot overall. The telephotos are also a little bit different, where the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 3x versus a 4x on the Pixel 6 Pro, and the Pixel 6 Pro can go down up to a 20x max zoom versus just 15x on the Pixel 6 Pro. So it's slightly better when it comes to zoom, and I would say the Pixel 6 Pro definitely looked sharper when it came to zooming in for photos. And I tried out both of these super stabilized modes on both of them, and I found both of them to be pretty impressive, and I honestly couldn't decide which one I liked better. Again, it was different in color and quality, but as far as the stabilization, I thought both of them did a pretty decent job. But overall, both of them are really good when it comes to the camera quality here. I would give the ultra wide the win on the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the telephoto the win on the Pixel 6 Pro, and then the main lenses are very good in my opinion. That I gave both of them just a really good job. I think they're both equally good. So it really will come down to your own personal preference. I also want to mention that it's such a hassle moving photos and videos from the iPhone to my PC because I have Windows. It's such a pain in the ass. I ended up having to use iCloud, which just was a hassle in itself. And I don't know if the videos that you guys are seeing for the iPhones may be a little bit different compared to what they're actually shooting, because it changes it up a little bit in the color quality on Premiere Pro and when I'm moving them to my Windows PC. So I have to use have to use a LUTs to fix the color correction and stuff like that. So hopefully it's pretty accurate to what the iPhone shoots. So yeah, just want to keep that in mind, just because it was a pain in the ass moving those photos and files from the iPhone to my PC. As far as battery life, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is going to have a 4,323 milliamp hour battery, and the Pixel 6 Pro is going to have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So in my experience, every day I was able to get through the whole day without any problems. So I would get maybe 2 to 3 hours of screen on time on my lighter days, and then about 4 to 5 hours screen on time on my heavier days. So really will depend. So your mileage will definitely vary here. But for me personally, I was able to get through the whole day with both devices. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I could definitely get into the next day if I had the always on display off. On the Pixel 6 Pro, if I had the always on display on, it would definitely kill the battery a lot more. I even found that sometimes when I wasn't using the Pixel 6 Pro as my main device and I had the always on display turned on, it would drain the device. So it would literally start with a full battery in the morning, and then by the end of the night, it would be down to like 10 or 50% without me even using it. It just had the always on display on. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that the always on display seems to affect both of them, but it seems to affect the Pixel 6 Pro maybe roughly a little bit more. But overall, with both of always on displays turned on, my daily usage, I'm able to get through the whole day. As far as the charging speeds and charging methods, charging speeds are honestly kind of about the same, about an hour and like 30 to 45 minutes. So they both claim to have fast charging, but it's slow fast charging, so it's not really fast charging. So they take a pretty long time to charge up, and both of them have wireless charging as well. The Pixel 6 Pro does have reverse wireless charging to power share and charge other devices, but besides that, both of them still are pretty slow. And I also want to mention that with the adaptive charging turned on, if you use a Samsung wireless charger Trio, it's gonna not really work that well. So in the morning, I'll wake up and I'm still at like 30 or 40% battery life instead of the phone being fully charged or trickle charging overnight. Adaptive charging doesn't seem to work unless I think you're using a cable or maybe like a Pixel stand and stuff like that. But besides that, charging methods and charging speeds aren't really any different and kind of suck on both. So overall, if you have a Pixel 6 Pro right now, should you upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro Max? I would tell you probably not. I think you still have a really good phone right now and probably could wait another year before you even upgrade to any other phone right now. But if you really want to switch, then it would be a nice little upgrade. It won't be many changes, and in fact, you might even consider some things to be worse on the iPhone because of the software and stuff like that and differences. But it's definitely going to come down to your decision if you want to go into iOS or not. I personally think if you already have a Pixel 6 Pro, you're pretty good right now, even with the Pixel 7 Pro, which I will be getting and comparing. But for now, I think if you have a Pixel 6 Pro, there's no need to upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, in my opinion. But that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed.